Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Um, this is one of our monthly free webinars that we do with Colibri Garden. Usually we have a special guest, but this time we thought we would do it Ivaylo and I because we've been wanting to get into this topic for a while. And I think it's one that's very pertinent to a lot of people who are looking to step into service, step into facilitation, and especially bringing in the new year. It's quite a nice topic if people are looking to make those shifts. So yeah, in this webinar, we're going to talk about our own journeys to facilitation. We're going to talk about the core values and the pillars of facilitation that we use at Colibri Garden. We're going to talk about some tips that we have for people that are looking to facilitate. And sorry, I was just making sure if everyone can make sure they're on mute, that would be super helpful. And some common mistakes to avoid. And we're also going to get a little bit into the nuances and the blessings of working with Indigenous elders, which is what we do at Colibri Garden. So yeah, super excited. Welcome everybody. Also, if people want to drop in the chat where you're calling in from and just introduce yourself, feel free to do so. And if you have any questions for us or any questions that come up whilst we're talking, feel free to take a note of those and we'll make sure that we have some time for Q&A at the end. And also, if you want to just drop them in the chat, we can get to them that way as well. Okay. So, welcome, Golda. Chile, NYC. Yeah, I imagine it's a lot chillier than where we are in Colombia right now. So I'm just going to start off by introducing myself. Some of you know me, some of you I don't think I've met before. So my name is Mags. I'm an integration specialist, and I'm head of integration at Colibri Garden. I help to facilitate the ceremonies and retreats that we host at Colibri Garden. And I'm also a writer and a journalist with focus on sacred medicines and psychedelics. And obviously, we also have Ivaylo on the call with us. Ivaylo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. I think I've met pretty much everyone on the call already, but for those of you that don't know me, maybe some of you that do know me might not know a thing or two about me, but I've been participating in ceremonies myself for a bit more than 8 years now, and the last a bit more than four, it's been my work that I'm organizing ayahuasca retreats and ceremonies, San Pedro ceremonies, where I help, I bring people to medicine families, and I myself share temazcal, mushrooms, and cambo, most recently, the last year and a half. And yeah, I also like playing ceremonies, help with the music, and generally have been on this path for some time now. And yeah, very happy to be here tonight. And thank you, Mags, for suggesting that we do this conversation, this workshop. The idea is that like we ourselves are first of all students of the medicines, and like we just wanted to come together, have a conversation, share about our own individual experiences, and like for other people like yourselves who might be interested to like at the very least be a little bit more involved in the ceremonies and the spaces that you go to, can benefit, find something useful. But we are in no way like a moral authority or the people who say what is right and what is wrong, but we're just going to share our experience, what has worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, and just some observations with the clear understanding that we don't have all the answers and we're not here to say what is right or wrong. So I just wanted to share that. Hello.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely echoing what Ivaylo said. It's it's been a journey, and at the same time, I speak for myself. I feel like I'm very much still at the beginning of this journey with the facilitation, with the medicines and everything. And but yeah, it's a lot of learning, and I think that that never really stops from what I hear. So I would love to start off with Ivaylo, if you could start off telling everybody a little bit about your journey to getting started with the medicines, walking the medicine path, and now accompanying other people through this process.
Absolutely. So, um, I like saying, like when people ask me, how did you start on this path with the medicines? I like saying that, like many people who are on this path, I had my personal big crisis, like about 11 years ago now, maybe 12 years ago soon, when my mother passed away. She had cervical cancer, and then after a year of like operations, and it was very, very tough process, she passed away. And then this, like event put me in 2, 3, 4 year old long like depression, where I was like not having like a dark night of the soul, but I was having like a dark like 3 years of the soul. Like waking up with lots of anxiety on a daily basis, having suicidal thoughts, only being able to kind of like get a small kind of like relief after smoking like a lot of ganja. And like I was just barely surviving for a long time. And I was living in London at the time, and I was very fortunate that I found a job that was dealing with, like was in the security, international security area. So a lot of the work I did was a lot of life and death situations, like looking after people. So I could override, like my own personal drama with something that was more important. So that was a positive step in the sense that it allowed me to just kind of like put something more important than my own stuff, and allowed me to sweep everything under the rug. So I was no longer feeling miserable, dreadful on a daily basis, but this sweeping under the rug basically resulted in me not feeling anything at all. So there was no uh, there was what's the word, muted pain, but then also I didn't feel any joy, any flavor, any like satisfaction from life. I was just going through the motions. And then and in this moment I was like trying mindfulness meditation, like going and exercising, and like reading all these articles on the internet, like what do successful people do, like how do you deal with your depression, how do you like release grief from your dying, your parent that passed away, all these things. And I was so willing to do anything. I went to therapy here living in the UK, but I just couldn't really, like get what I was looking for. And until I got to experience ayahuasca, like in one moment in my life, my sister invited me to a ceremony. And in this moment, it was scarier to keep going the way that I was going rather than to drink a cup of the vine of death or the vine of spirit, like, which is one of the translations of ayahuasca. And that's how it all began. And when I had my first connection with the medicine, I just felt that, wow, like people should know about this, like I'm sure there are people who, just like myself, are really willing to do the work that is necessary to like live a life of peace and tranquility, but they just don't have the tools. And I had just come across a tool that I thought was just so powerful and that completely changed my life. So this was the original motivation, and then just wanting to help others not go through what I went through, and save them some time, save them some suffering, like, and save them this feeling of like feeling like feeling like I was in prison in my own psyche. And then with time, I just, like when I came to Colombia, just leaving my job in London, I came to Colombia. I started going to ceremonies, little by little, started helping. Then little by little, I got invited, asked first by a friend to organize ayahuasca ceremony for him and a group of friends of his. And then I got asked by someone to do a mushroom ceremony. Then I got asked by the medicine family we work with to if we could, like do something similar with the San Pedro ceremonies. And then, just through practice and going to the ceremonies and developing the relationships with different elders and medicine families, I could, like get to be here today where I'm sharing about my experience. So this is the compact version. I'm gonna hand over to Max to share about a little bit about her path, but we're gonna have more moments to talk about other things as well. That's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ivaylo. Yeah, for me, I found the medicines after I moved to Colombia. So I moved almost 7 years ago in 2018 to Colombia, and I was in a very different place in my life than I am now. I think I'd mostly, at that point I was only 23. I was pretty young. But I'd mostly come out of kind of like the phase of like late teens, early 20s, like a lot of partying, um, drinking, things like that. And yeah, I was mostly coming out of that when I arrived to Colombia, and I managed to find a job at a company here that gave me a visa so I could stay long term. And I was starting to get like more in touch with different types of spirituality. I was starting to meditate, focus a little bit more on my health. And I always had a lot of curiosity around psychedelics in general. I'd done mushrooms once or twice when I was at uni in a completely recreational setting. And when I came here, I met some people who were experimenting with different medicines. First of all, in a recreational sense, like there were a few LSD journeys that were really, really amazing and really beautiful. But I always had ayahuasca or yahe in the back of my mind. And it wasn't until a friend of mine who had been going to ceremonies pretty regularly invited me to my first ceremony, and that was in 2019. So at the end of 2019, so just over 5 years ago. And I honestly, I didn't have like a very, very clear intention around like healing something specific or like working on something within myself, but I just felt this very strong pull and curiosity to get to know the medicines. And I think I was just living a life where I knew there was more to it. And I went to this first ceremony, and the analogy that I gave after I came out of it was I felt like I kind of dipped the tip of my toe into what could potentially happen in a ceremony with this medicine. So it wasn't one of those kind of like breakthrough experiences, which actually happens for many people when they first start drinking medicine, is they don't connect very deeply straight away. That wasn't the case for me, but I just knew there was something there, and I felt so light, I felt so clear afterwards. And I just kept going to ceremonies. After then, the pandemic hit, and so there was a long break. And then I think I went to like one more ceremony, and then Ivaylo started hosting the ceremonies that he just had mentioned with Colibri Garden, and thank the Giovanni, who is the elder that we work with, who served Yahe. And I decided that I wanted to go to one of the ceremonies that he was organizing, which was a different experience for me because previously I'd been attending ceremonies where and if you're in Colombia and you've been to these types of ceremonies, you'll know how it works. It's kind of just you sign up via WhatsApp, and then you show up and you drink the medicine. The intake is kind of like sitting in a circle with the shaman and him just making sure no one's taking any medication. And then the next morning you leave, and that's it. You do whatever you want with your experience, but there isn't really any guidance around like how to really prepare and especially what to do afterwards in a meaningful way. But going to this first ceremony with Colibri Garden, we had the preparation meeting and the integration meeting, and then coupled with the fact that Dr. Giovanni's medicine is really, really strong. That was the experience that really changed a lot for me. I'd been working at this company for like 3 years or almost 3 years at that point, and the medicine just showed me in a very clear way all of the stress that I was holding, carrying in my body, all of the responsibility that I was taking for other people. Um, and yeah, just a lot of clarity around the direction that I wanted to take. So a month later, after that ceremony, I quit my job, high stress job in a PR company in Medellin. I went full freelance, and I started writing about the medicines. And then organically just started going to more and more ceremonies, getting more involved with Colibri Garden. I started helping to facilitate the Colibri Garden monthly integration circle, which used to happen in person in Medellin. Now we do it online, but that was kind of like my first step in the direction of facilitation, which is really, really, really powerful learning experience for me. And then, yeah, shortly after that, I started to help facilitate the ceremonies, the Jahe ceremonies, and then later helping to organize the Wachuma ceremonies as well. And then at the same time started doing some online programs, which were really, really helpful for me, especially one with Kat Courtney of Plant Medicine People. If anyone is interested in doing an integration training, I really recommend hers, and I can share the link to that. And then up until 2024, when we actually started running our longer retreats, which have just been, yeah, such a blessing and a gift and an amazing opportunity to get to know people in a deeper level and accompany people in a deeper level. Thank you. All right. So next, I'd love to ask you, Vilo, what do you consider to be the core values or the core pillars of facilitation at Colibri Garden?
Um, well, this is an interesting question, and maybe like I can share something now, and then maybe something else comes up later on. But really, um, when it comes to a core principle, something to keep in mind whenever like I go to a ceremony, or even if I'm just attending, like I'm not necessarily facilitating. I think that it's very important to be humble. It's very important to kind of like keep your sense of personal importance in check. For example, like something I was thinking about is that I recently went to a sweat lodge here in London, like about 10 days ago. And like I most of the people here, like you know that this last year in I was given the blessing to run my own sweat lodge, and I built one in my house, and we've been doing them. Some of you have been to the sweat lodges even. So like I was thinking how like I went there to the sweat lodge, and how easy it would have been to be like, oh, like I have my sweat lodge, like give me, I'm this guy, but people don't want to hear about that. It's not important, like so. What's important is just to like even if things, not to be like looking to get a pat on the back, this validation, this recognition. This is not important. What's important is that the ceremony happens. What's important is that people come and they nurture themselves from the prayer, from the songs, from what they're going to hear by the ceremony elder. If you go and like you can help, well, that's fantastic, but that's not important. If you're a great singer, like, and you get to sing a song, or if you're a great guitarist and you get to play a song, that's great. But if you don't, that's not important. So just to kind of like keep that in mind, that like I know it's kind of like similar to when like when you're a musician and you sing in the ceremony, that it's not a performance. It's not about like just being there, the center of attention, the person who's singing and so beautifully and everyone's looking at you. That's not the point. The point is that you channel a particular energy to help the ceremony. So I think that's very important. That's a core value, not to take yourself too seriously, to be humble. Also, obviously, like working with the medicines, like you want to be in integrity. And when I say in integrity, it doesn't mean that like you're perfect, that you never drink a glass of a beer, you never say one bad word comes of your mouth. Like I'm not saying that, but it's about representing yourself correctly where you are in your life, with all your humanity and all the good stuff, but also all the things that you still need to learn. That's what it means to be in integrity. Not that you have everything figured out and you're this impeccable, perfect human being. We all have the things to work on. It's just about not creating a false image in front of other people to come across one way or another. And I think that, like also like something generally, and maybe there are many other points, but I'm just gonna share this one and stop here, is that whenever you wanna, like if you wanna be the facilitator, or if you wanna play a role in the facilitator's team, you need to be a leader. And leaders eat last. Leaders take the least comfortable seat. Leaders, like make sure everyone else is taken care of before they are taken care of. So you're the one taking care of others. So these are like just some core principles, like it's not important that you have the best seat like around the fire with the hands, but it's important that the people that came, they have the best seat. And if there's a seat for you, that's great. And if there isn't, you can sit on the ground, because that's okay, because you're someone there to look after others. These are some things that I wanted to share. How
Thank
about
you,
you, Max?
Vilo. Yeah, I echo all of that. I think especially with the first two that you mentioned, I think just the importance of doing your own inner work as a facilitator and keeping that ongoing, this realizing that there's no final destination of healed or enlightened, or once you're the facilitator, you don't have to continue that process of healing and self-exploration. I feel like for any person who's in this position, even more so, it's our responsibility to keep doing that inner work, precisely because of what you said about keeping our own ego in check and making sure that any ceremony, any retreat that you're facilitating is not a facilitator focused event, it's a participant focused event. And you know, this is, I feel like, yeah, we're going to overlap a little bit, a lot between these questions, but there are many opportunities to talk about yourself and your experience, and like there's going to be opportune moments for that, especially when it can be helpful for other people, but just really always making sure that the focus is on the experience of the participants. And which kind of like leads into my next point, which I think safety. I think safety above all else. If people don't feel safe with you leading the ship, because that's essentially what we're doing when we're accompanying people through these processes with the medicines, they're not going to feel able to go deep into their process and to let go to the point that they need to. So yeah, safety is a huge one. So again, it ties into the personal inner work. I think it ties into just making sure that your nervous system is regulated. And even if there are moments where you might feel triggered by something, by someone, or like something might happen that's unexpected, that might create some kind of like internal reaction within you, just making sure that you have the resources and the capability to deal with that internally without projecting it onto anybody else. And again, that internal work also, um, yeah, is really important to make sure that we're precisely not doing that projection or countertransference, as they'd call it in therapy speak, which is basically just like your own triggers, your own wounds, projecting them onto other people. It's really important as facilitators to make sure that that's a consistent process. Um, Let me see. And then finally, I just think utmost respect for everybody that comes. I think that's a really important value, making sure that we respect everybody's background, making sure that we respect everybody's reasons for joining a retreat, for joining an experience. As long as obviously they've passed through like the intake process and we deem that it's the right thing for them in the moment. And just inclusivity, making sure that everybody, no matter where they come from, what background they are, um, feels welcome, feels safe, and included in the experiences that we offer. Okay. Anything else you'd add to that, Ivaylo? Anything else that's coming up for you?
I think that, well, just to echo what you said, like, yeah, not to let your personal opinions and likes or dislikes get in the way, because well, we've been working, like for more than 4 years doing these ceremonies, and even if most of the people that have come to the retreat we've absolutely loved, there have been people that I personally didn't really like at all. Like that I just was like, oh, like I really like this person gets to me, or like I really don't agree with their politics or whatever, like, but or maybe they've been impolite, like, or they've been very, very, very impolite. But then still, like it's important to respect that person and treat them just the same. And in fact, if there's someone that you don't like, and this is gonna happen, like if like you're on this path, it's almost like you have to make an extra effort to treat them even like a little bit nicer, like than everybody else. So to kind of like override that personal, like little person reaction, like that we all carry this little person inside of us, but we shouldn't let that, like move our lips, move our limbs, take action. So this is something that I think is important. And I think also just, like the best teacher, the best master is always a student. Like, so just always to remain a student, always to remain with a certain level of humility, that as much as you might know, there are things you don't know, like, and never kind of feel more special than anyone just because you know something and they don't, or because you're more spiritual. If you think you're more spiritual than anybody, you're already like making a mistake. So these are some things that come to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just the one final thing I'll add to this point, but before we move in on, is just really making sure that whatever worldview or yeah, way of seeing the world, spiritual beliefs, opinions, agendas, whatever you might hold and feel is relevant for your own life, just making sure that we're not putting that onto anybody else. Because people come from many, many different backgrounds. People come who maybe have come from like a religious background. People come who are atheist, and people come who are just getting into, you know, spirituality in different forms and modalities and medicines and this kind of stuff. And yeah, we might feel strongly about the things that we believe or the way that we see the world, but just making sure that nobody feels like we're trying to force it on them or like put it on them or anything like that. Um, Okay, and then so next, if somebody wants to start helping out, like helping out in a ceremony, um, or maybe start working towards serving a medicine themselves, because there are two sides to this. There's the ceremonial assistant and facilitating in that way, which is part of what we do, but then there's also serving medicines yourself and leading ceremonies yourself, which is part of what you do. Ivaylo, how would you recommend that somebody goes about starting off on this path?
Well, I think that first of all, like um obviously people who get the motivation, the inspiration to um start on this path, they've obviously been to ceremonies, like they've experienced the medicine. So I think that first, if you wanna, like start helping at a place or work with an elder, you should start going to their ceremonies. And I think that, like at least the first retreat or ceremony that you go to, you should not ask for a discount. You should not ask that you don't pay and pay with your work. You should just go and like pay the place, pay the elder. It's also a way of showing respect, and like just pay for the retreat, for the ceremony, for the whatever, and attend. And then after that, like once you've been there, you can kind of like feel it out, And like if they're looking for any help, I offer your help. And like when you offer your help, um just offer to do whatever is needed. you know it's not more special to sing than to wash the buckets from someone's vomit. It's not more special to say the prayer, like in the ceremony, than to help someone change their clothes because they shot themselves. It's not more special. It's not more special to take care of the fire than to clean the toilet. So whatever is needed is like whatever is needed. So just make yourself available for whatever is needed. And just, like by being there, by doing any work whatsoever, is already special enough. So, and usually in these spaces, when you volunteer to clean the toilet, to do the 2 a.m. fire night shift, taking care of the fire night shift, this is actually communicating to the elder or the person, like looking after, taking care of the ceremony, organizing the ceremony, that, okay, well, they understand, like they want responsibility rather than they want attention. So I think that's very important, to just make yourself available. And also just, like something that I have done in different relations with different elders is, as much as I'm capable, like wherever I can bring some kind of a gift, like, can I just try to be observant? For example, oh, like it's always nice to have like some sage or some copal or some palo santo, or just things that they use in the ceremony. So just observe, or maybe they need like one of those fans for the fire, or I went to an ayahuasca retreat and I saw they didn't have a capo for the guitar, so I went to this guitar shop and I bought them a capo. So just kind of like observe, like what you can contribute and make the life of the ceremony holder, retreat holder a little easier, and just do that. But only do and only give the things that, like, as much as not gonna put you in the energy of like, oh, like I gave them this and now they should give me this. Like just give as much as you can, just give, but really give that, already by giving, I'm winning. So I don't expect anything back. And even if they don't recognize it and nobody says thank you, I'm happy with what I've done already. And like, and when you start being consistent, reliable, like when you say I'm gonna be there at 8 o'clock, be there at 8 o'clock. When you say I'm gonna do this, do it, like, so people start perceiving you as someone reliable, someone they can count on. And then with time, like when you show these qualities, I mean, people are very happy to get involved in the work they do. And with time, they're gonna start sharing things with you. Also, it's important to be patient, not to be like, like, oh, I've been to like 5 temazcal, take care of the fire, but they still haven't shared anything with me. They haven't like sat with me and tell me, oh, this is how you do this and that. This is actually very rare that an elder is going to sit with you and tell you, okay, so this is how you do this is how you do that, this is why we do this. Very rare, almost non-existent. It's really about observing, paying attention, and these rare opportunities that someone would sit with you and explain and tell you, A, B, C, D is done because of this, and that's how to do it, and this is the reasoning. This is very rare, and you should treasure it. But yeah, just to be patient, be generous with your time, be reliable, punctual, and yeah, just like you just gotta show up, do the ceremony, drink the medicine, take care of the fire, and with time, like you earn the more responsibility that you're given, more or less. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah, absolutely. I would really echo what you're saying with the patience and showing up. Like even if you want to help in a ceremony, it's really important to make sure that you have that experience under your belt and just put in the time, put in the hours, and yeah, do everything that Ivaylo was saying. And then the patience, I think, especially if you want to work towards leading ceremonies yourself or serving a medicine, something like that, I think the patience there is really crucial because a lot of times what we're seeing is people who, maybe they drink ayahuasca 10 times and they receive a message from the medicine that, you know, they're a shaman and they need to start leading their own ceremonies, but especially with medicines like ayahuasca, and even when it comes to leading retreats, and maybe not serving ayahuasca, but leading retreats, organizing ceremonies, and accompanying people through that process, it's really important that that we have sufficient experience with the medicine to know the territory that we're helping people traverse at the same time. So, yeah, just recognizing the importance of experience with the medicine that you want to work with. Um, and another thing, Marvin will have some time for questions at the end. But if you have a question, keep note of it. Um, Another thing I would really encourage people that feel called to this path is really just recognize the why. Why is it that you want to facilitate? Again, is it because it's something that you feel brings status, brings economic opportunity, or brings, yeah, attention? Or is it just a deep calling that you feel within you? Just really try and get in touch with that deep calling that you feel. If you feel like that's what's driving it, then definitely honor that. And finally, for me, I mean, Ivaylo, as you know, it's been indispensable to have a guide, a mentor on this journey. Maybe your mentor is not going to be like the elder that you're supporting, but if there is somebody else in that team, or if there's somebody else who you see doing something that you would really like to eventually do yourself, yeah, try and learn a lot from that person, often offer to help them in any way that you can. And again, it's not about being having a lot of expectations around other people's time and energies. A lot of the time is more about like observing and seeing how people do things. But if you can get like a mentor that can help you and support you, like what I had with you, I love that. It's so helpful. Somebody that you can have those deeper conversations with and invite that feedback, because there'll likely be many moments where maybe you didn't do something in the best way, or the person who's mentoring you, guiding you, would wants to kind of give you some tips and advice on how to handle certain situations. So yeah, it's always good to have that channel open and be open to that feedback as well.
Wow, I feel
Okay.
like we should have made this session a couple of hours rather than
I know, I just looked at the time as well.
that.
Um, And then, is there anything that you would add to that in framing it as the mistakes to avoid? What are some common mistakes that we see that maybe we haven't already touched on? One that's coming to me is like the ethical boundaries that we need to make sure we're always honoring as facilitators.
Absolutely. So, well, there's some principles that I've been, like there are things that I've learned myself through making errors myself, and there are other things that I have been very fortunate that my brothers and sisters on this path that are maybe some steps ahead have shared with me. One of them is definitely, like to not, how do I say it? To not flirt and with people that come to the ceremonies, to not kind of like even entertain that energy of kind of like being flirtatious with people that come, because like you need to be very aware that when you are in the facilitator role, this is a very attractive energy, both for men and women, like because you're the person who's accompanying people through potentially life-changing experiences. You're the one who's there listening, like making the person feel understood. So it's very easy, like that person who maybe don't have someone who's even been 100% present with them, like many times in their life. And all of a sudden you're there and then you give them 100% of their attention. So from the patient's perspective, it's easy to project certain feelings on you that, like romantic feelings or feelings of attraction. So it's very important to keep that in mind and just kind of like be very, like professional in that sense. Even if, like there's mm, this doesn't mean like 100% never ever, never ever do anything. But what it means is that even if you were to connect on a more personal level with someone, there needs to be like a few months in between, like at least like 4, 5, 6 months, like something like that between the moment that you met them in a ceremonial setting, to give some time for the dust to settle, and then kind of like with all that awareness, like maybe like ask them out or let them ask you out or whatever. So it's very important to keep that boundary clear, and then just like just to it's also very important to realize like just how much power you have, and to whatever the person might have done in a ceremony or in a retreat setting, just to never make the person feel embarrassed, like about what they would have done with the medicine. For example, if like someone had like a very intense ayahuasca experience where they screamed, or maybe they pooped themselves, like, or they just completely lost the plot and they were aggressive, like whatever might have been the case, never ever ever make the person like feel like they were a burden, or they were like just such a pain to deal with or anything like that. And just to like I think that for example, I think that like, because obviously in the context of like coaching, like in integration support and all these things, for example, what I like saying is that, for example, this practice that we have with the retreat and the ceremony, well, it is a business in a way, but then it's not like any other business. So, for example, if someone, like every time we speak to people, where we have a sales process, like in a sales process about like getting to know the person, what they're after, what they need, then like telling them what we do, and then seeing like if there's a match, then they can come to us. But it's one thing, like to be selling an ayahuasca retreat or like mushroom ceremony or something like that, than to sell like software to a business company, like, or to sell like, I don't know, like finance coaching or whatever. So when people come, like, and say, oh, I've been feeling very anxious and it's been affecting my relationships and all these things. And then for example, I tell them, like, oh, the retreats cost like $800 to come. And they're like, oh, it's a lot of money. And then like something what would be unethical would be to kind of like, like turn on the pain, which would be, well, how would your relationships be affected if you don't deal with this anxiety in the next year? And then, I can kind of like put your finger in the sore spot of the person, and just kind of like get them to buy the retreat, to participate in the ceremony because of fear. you know that's not the point. This is not an empowering energy for your patient. So as much as like you might want that person to come to your retreat, what is always, 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 always most important is that person's well-being, not that you get another participant for the retreat or for the ceremony. So it's like it takes a lot of like moral qualities, and it takes a lot of like taking the higher ground, and like, and just doing the right thing. So yeah, these are some of the things that come to mind. Again, like I'm sure that we can have like easily like a 3-hour conversation on this topic, but yeah, these are just the main points that come to mind at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being very, very ready to say no to somebody if they come to you and maybe they desperately want to have the medicine experience that you're potentially offering them. Maybe they think that this is, like a last ditch attempt, but then maybe this is the last thing that they've tried to heal or to get better. And even so, if they don't pass the intake process that everybody should have before allowing people to drink medicine, whether it's jahe, wachuma, mushrooms, whatever it is, yeah, we have to be very, very ready to say no to those people. And it doesn't have to be no, shut the door, go and find another solution yourself. Like we can maybe recommend other things. Like maybe they want to try some breath work. Maybe they want to try microdosing mushrooms before they have a big, a higher dose, something like that. Like we can always be very compassionate with the no. We can always offer them alternative solutions, send them in the direction of other, potential healers or modalities that would be useful for them. But just having, like Ivaylo said, their health and well-being at that's the most important thing. So before we move on to some quick questions, I want to close out this but just this the back and forth that we have right now with a discussion around the working with the Indigenous elders specifically. So we've already touched on this a little bit. Working with Indigenous elders is such a huge blessing. It's something that allows us to have a very, very pure experience of ancestral tradition. And I think in my experience, it's just a very unique thing to be in a ceremony with an elder who not only has put in the many, many years of study required to serve a medicine like Diahe or ayahuasca, but they actually carry that tradition in their DNA and the power that they have cultivated not only through their own life, but their whole ancestry and their lineage is it's a very unique thing, and it's just a blessing to be able to do that. And at the same time, there are also some nuances. These are people who have a different culture. Oftentimes, they have a different communication style. For me, I think one of the biggest lessons of working with Indigenous elders, as somebody who loves to kind of like receive feedback, either, constructive, what can I improve, or validating, this is what I'm doing well. Just to really learn to not expect that ever. Like Ivana was saying before, no matter how much we feel like we're doing in the ceremony, no matter how much we feel like we're helping, how often we're showing up, just to really not expect that person to come over and give me a pat on the back and say great job, and just be very safe in the knowledge that I'm doing my best. I'm doing what I'm doing with pure intention, with integrity, and that's enough for me. Maybe I help him as well as with the retreats and the ceremonies with Colibri Garden. I also help with public ceremonies, which are essentially the open ceremonies that for the community, for anybody who wants to go. And sometimes they'll have these ceremonies every single weekend. And I'm not able to go and do that every single weekend. I have a lot of other things going on, other projects, and I'm very committed to the medicine, but I need to always make sure that that I'm conserving my own energy so that when I do go, I show up in the best way without expecting the validation, the pats on the back. What would you add to that about working with an Indigenous elder?
I think it's very important to just be sensitive to the cultural differences. So, for example, in like in Western cultures, like what I mean is like European, North American. When you meet someone, you shake their hands. Most of the places in Colombia, when you meet someone, like you give them a kiss. Like oftentimes it's very common. Like once you actually have met someone, even between men, like you give each other a hug. Indigenous people, many of them, they don't even shake their hands. Like so, kind of like you, kind of like wanting to like shake the hand, giving him a hug. Like it's can actually be a little bit off-putting for them. So just to be kind of sensitive of stuff like that. Also, like something to be aware of is that the indigenous, and that's definitely been the case with the Taita, with our ayahuasca elder. They observe a lot. You're under constant observation. What you do, what you don't do, what you say, what you don't say. Like so to kind of be mindful of that. I would say also that um, like obviously, as I said earlier, if you can give some kind of a gift, amazing, but only to the point where there's not gonna be an expectation to receive something in return. Just the gift giving in itself is a reward enough. And like, and as I said, just do the um do the thing that no one else wants to do, or do the thing that people want to do the least. You know, like this is something to get you in their good books. And also, if you show interest in their culture, if you in a way you're also like showing respect to them, to their culture. So just things like that, you know, like to be aware of. At the same time, you know, like, and this is a process I feel that most people pass through, and I've definitely passed through that with all the elders I have the pleasure to have a relationship with and study with, is that, you know, like I would put him on a pedestal on up until some point, you know, oh, he's the taita, you know, he has all the answers, or like this is Abuela Gloria, you know, like the elder who released the sweat lodge, the Temazcal, and the Vision Quest, that I've studied with, or Ju and Susie that, you know, like lead the San Pedro ceremony, you know, like I would put them on a pedestal and then just kind of like look at them as these like infallible beings, you know, like, and it's actually quite unpleasant to be put on a pedestal, because I have myself been put on pedestal by different people, and it's actually quite unpleasant. No one likes to be on that pedestal because, you know, that the same way you're on the pedestal, it's very quickly to to come off it. And you know, like, it's the same coin, different sides of the same coin. So just try to treat them as much. Of course, you know, like, I respect the taita and the abuela and Joe and Susie, like, they have my respect, but they're not different than me. They're human beings just as me. And you know, like, and also this is like something that you should observe in yourself. If you feel like you're putting someone on a pedestal, this means that you're comparing yourself to somebody, to that person, and you're comparing yourself in a less favorable way. So this is also a sign for you that you're not really assuming, you know, like, this full responsibility and this full feeling confident in yourself as an equal to anybody, you know? And of course, treat them with respect, but be mindful that you're not putting them on a pedestal, giving them responsibility they never asked for. So yeah, these are some things that I wanted to share.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. We'll probably go over just to let people know, maybe like 15 minutes. But yeah, if you have to hop off, no worries, we'll send the recording. The final thing that I would add to this point about working with ancestral traditions is just really reflecting on how are you in reciprocity with the tradition as well, because especially us as Westerners, as outsiders, we receive so many blessings and gifts for our life from these medicines, from these elders, from these lineages who have faced centuries of, destruction, genocide, improper use of their land, damage to their land, their resources, everything, their traditions, their cultures. And it's, yeah, absolutely the least that we can do to give something back, to be in reciprocity. And being in reciprocity doesn't mean us as the outsider determining maybe what they need, what the community needs, going in, putting our own agenda on them. It means supporting Indigenous self-determination, supporting Indigenous autonomy. A lot of these communities, they may be hard on resources. They may have, especially in Colombia, they may be facing situations of illegal miners coming in, multinational companies coming in, coca leaf plantations for cocaine production, whatever it is. There are like many, many issues these communities are facing at the hands of people that want to extract resources from the lands and from their territories. So whatever we can do as people who have benefited greatly from these traditions to give back in whatever way, it might be financially, it might be another way, energetically, whatever it is. It's about being in collaboration with the community, listening to them very, very deeply. What are their needs and what is the best way that they deem to receive that support?
Absolutely. I just wanted to add something very quick, and we're very excited to receive your questions as well. I think it was very ambitious to think we're going to finish that in the first part in like 30 minutes, but I hope you've found this useful so far. I just wanted to share a couple of things, just a couple of concrete examples where medicine families that I know have kind of felt a bit of offense from Westerners, by the way that perhaps maybe for us as Westerners, something is just, it makes complete sense to do that. But it was kind of like quite offensive for the, you know, like the medicine families that I'm going to mention. So one of them, the first situation is that like a couple of years ago now, 2.5 years ago now, it's some time has passed. I went to help our Taita to cook some ayahuasca in the jungle. And you know, like ayahuasca is normally cooked for a very long time, and there's this whole process. But there's one particular preparation which is called the raw ayahuasca, which is a preparation where you don't cook it, crudo, viaje crudo. And they were, it's like a very laborious process, you know, like you take the vine and then you use these wooden big hammers, and then it's like for maybe for like an hour or more, you just like smash it and smash it and smash it, and then it's just so tiring. And then apparently there was this person, a Westerner, I'm not gonna say what country, but they were like, hey, why don't you use this machine, and then you can just very quickly make the process, you know, like super easy. Why are you wasting this time? But there is a reason why you do it, because when you're there and your body hurts and your back hurts, but you're able to keep the good thoughts and you're able to say thank you in your mind for this opportunity to be doing this work, you know, like this, all the energy that goes in the medicine. So we might be thinking that, oh, like they're wasting time, you know, like you can do this better in this way. But actually it's kind of like very, it was perceived in that situation very inconsiderate and very offensive, you know, like by that person to say that to the elder. And then the other situation was like, one of the Mason families we work with, someone approached them and he was like, hey man, like just tell me how much money can I pay you that you teach me this? And it's like, no, you cannot pay, you know, this hasn't got a price. This is like something that you gotta earn on the realm of spirit, you know, like I don't want your money, you know? And even if they really need the money, they wouldn't take it, because this type of knowledge, this type of power cannot be bought. You know, like, and we're very much used in the West to go to the supermarket, go on the internet and click and buy whatever we want and just solve every situation with money. But then just to kind of be aware that as much as we might be blessed, and you know, like I wish all of you have lots and lots of money, because money allows us to do good things in the world, just try to kind of be mindful of that dynamic, that you might not come as disrespectful to someone and just kind of like um um kind of like imply that you can buy knowledge, you know, like and power in that world. So these are just a couple of things I wanted to share. And on that note, shall we open for some questions? So any questions you might have, over to you. Very happy to answer, but I'm gonna shut up and hand over to our fantastic facilitator for this meeting, Mags. So yeah, over to you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to raise a hand, and you can come off mute, or if you would prefer to type it in the chat, you can also do that.
No questions.
Marvin, go ahead, Marvin.
Um, yes, two things. One, the first thing was when I raised my hand earlier was just I felt like adding something that I have to remove is that the word in facilitation and also holding a ceremony with medicine, it's it's very mystical, right? It's and there's most of what happened there, it's unknown and it's really weird to put logic behind to things. And there's a lot of things that we don't understand that can happen and that can be dangerous. So also being aware that experience, cannot be replaced by maybe one ceremony I feel calling like, oh, I want to start whatever medicine, and then feeling like because we don't really start with medicine, like there is a lot of long journey, preparation and learn from the elders. Just wanted to, but because there's some dangers that we're not aware that can be broader than physical things. And the second thing is related to the physical things is as a facilitators, how do you guys in the intake process, how do you manage that uncertainty of the health and health wise if somebody it's like there's a gray area. I was like, yeah, you're okay to take the medicine, or maybe yeah, you're okay. Like how do you guys deal with that feeling, or how does it work?
I didn't quite get the second question. Could you please repeat that one more time?
Yeah, as a facilitator and the responsibility of you know um facilitating a ceremony, how do you deal with the uncertainty of the approval of somebody to be like healthy, or that they're gonna be okay with the medicine when there's a gray area where maybe for some people it's very clear they're healthy, they're young, they're like, and there's never zero risk for things, but how do we manage that gray area?
I can speak to this. Well, we have a criteria. We have a criteria. We have a set of interview questions that we ask every person. And vast majority of cases, people they don't have any complications. They don't have any serious physical health conditions that would prevent them. They don't have any mental health conditions. They never received a psychiatric diagnosis. They're not taking medication. But in these cases that you're talking about, maybe somebody's taking a certain medication. Maybe somebody has this certain health condition and we're not sure. Like, I think it's really about recognizing our limitations, that we're not medical doctors, we're not psychiatrists. We cannot just straight away say, like, oh, it's going to be okay. Or rule them out. So when we have those situations, it's usually something medical that would rule them out. In which case we go and we consult with people who do have the qualifications to give us some solid advice, and especially if it's the case of somebody who wants to take part in a ceremony and they're taking a certain medication that cannot be combined, and there's a process of tapering off the medication. It's really important that we make sure that that person first of all, knows what is involved in that process of tapering off and has the support of a medical professional in that process. Because even if we say, like, oh, it's not safe to combine ayahuasca with antidepressants, you need to stop taking them 1 week before. That's still irresponsible of us, because when people come off antidepressants and many other medications, they go through a very strong withdrawal process, especially if they do it from one day to the next, which they shouldn't. It needs to be a gradual tapering process. So I think for us, it's about, like, yes, we have knowledge and experience, and there are limitations to that. So making sure that in your network, you have people that you can consult with on the medical side and the pharmaceutical side. And if it's a case of somebody, maybe they're not taking a medication, or yeah, something that would be contraindicated with the medicine, but they're just at a place in their life where they're not as resourced as we would like them to be. Maybe they don't have a support system around them. Maybe they're working 60, 80 hours a week and they want to come to a ceremony, but they cannot take any time to prepare and they cannot take any time to integrate. I think it's always best to err on the side of caution. And if we have something that's telling us intuitively, like, I don't think this person is going to be able to go through this process with the support and the resources that they need to make sure that it's actually, safe for them and has impact in their life, then it's always best just to say, like, hey, um, um, let's, leave it a little bit, maybe give it a few months. If there's a sense of urgency, like the person's like, I need this, I need this, I need this, that's actually a red flag, because this process, this journey is not about urgency and it's not about quick fixes. So I would, if there's some doubt, I would, rather than just kind of saying like, oh, it'll probably be okay, I would say like, actually, maybe even just wait or try something else in the meanwhile, and then they can always come back to us when they feel like they're a bit more stable. Just
Thank you so much.
checking.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Max. I was gonna add that I think like a big part of this work is trusting your intuition. And that's why, you know, like everybody that wants to come to a ceremony, a retreat, any ceremony, any retreat, we always speak to them. We always offer a call. And that's kind of like a bit of a filter for us as well, because many times, for example, I would get people who are like, hey, I want to come to the ceremony. Like, how much does it cost? And just, you know, like something that I have found to work for me is like, I'm like, hey, I actually don't share this information over text message. Let's do a call. And the people that, you know, like are the people that we want to work with that have the right mindset, they would make the time to speak to the people they're going to take ayahuasca with or San Pedro or mushrooms with. And now when we're on the call, if they decide that, you know, like what we do is out of their budget, you know, like what we do is like, okay, well, we can send you to another place where you can, you know, like either do a public ceremony or you can, you know, like go to a retreat where maybe you don't get a private room for 4 days with all meals included. You just like 3 days, no food, sleep in the common room, you know, like there's also that, you know, like, so what we try to do is even if people don't want to come to to what we organize and what we offer, we try to help them to go and connect with the medicine in another place. But also just, you know, like when you have the call and then when you speak with someone, you can gauge and you can feel where they're at. I remember there was this person who was, I can't remember if he was a nurse or if he was like a doctor in an emergency room. And he had come to Medellin on holiday, and he was like hitting hard the party scene. And just I spoke to him and he's like, hey man, like I'm feel really tired, I feel very low on energy, just drinking so much coffee. I have a cocaine habit, you know, like that, like someone working in the healthcare system. And I'm like, I have a cocaine habit, like I want to change, I want to heal, I'm a good person. And I'm like, great. Well, if you want to come drink medicine, you got to stop, you know, like you got to stop the drugs, you got to stop the drinking, you got to decide what you want to do. But then this person was like, oh, so that means that I cannot go out tomorrow with my friends and, you know, like, and drink and take drugs. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? You know, you got to decide what you want to do. There's no judgment. If you want to go party, you know, like it's your life, do what you want to do. But you got to decide if you want to do some healing work and drink medicine, or if you want to go and indulge the pleasures of the flesh, you know, like and all of that. So this kind of moment, having a bit of a process where you connect with people, where you can ask them questions to help you understand where they're at, I think is very, very important and helps in that decision making. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And I see that there was a question from Chris about how do you see the role of facilitators and of plant medicines evolving, especially around outside of traditional context. So this is a big conversation, you know, this is a big conversation, especially now there's like a big conversation happening in Colombia around the legalization, the organization in front of the law of all these ceremonies, of all these treatments that are offered. And basically, you know, like, of course, this is my own personal, humble opinion. What do I know? But, you know, like, it's one thing, you know, like, of course, a taita is a taita, someone who has a lot of wisdom that they've acquired with years and years of training. But then, like someone who's lived all their life in Putumayo in the deep jungle, they don't understand the life of someone who works in New York in the financial district, and then they deal with the corporate world, and they, like have like a relationship in New York or in London or in Paris, and they're dealing with the realities of that life, of that context. So I think it's very important, the role of Western facilitators, in the sense that, like it's not just facilitating the ceremony and just making sure that the ceremony is run well, and then the people are taken care of inside the ceremony only. But then also, well, how do you take that experience and apply it to your life? So I think that it's very important, people like ourselves that understand both the local culture and that wisdom and that way of looking at the world and relating to life, but then also understanding that these people, they live in a completely different context, and how do you take this knowledge and apply it to that context. So yeah, I think that, and again, this is a big debate, big discussion, but I think that, like Western facilitators, as long as they adopt, like the core principles and values of these cultures, of these traditions, which are about, like protecting nature, following the law of, how ley de origen in Spanish, law of origin, like don't hurt anybody, do things that support life, that take care of life, and making yourself useful for life and people around you. And as long as these things are met, as long as you don't kind of like take things and improvise and make your own, like neo-shamanic kind of philosophy, I think it's, like as long as you base your practice in these like old traditions and ways and moral principles, I think that's all good.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I think it's the cat is out of the bag with a lot of these medicines, especially with ayahuasca. This is a medicine that like not only do you find it like outside of the jungle elsewhere in South America, but you can also find it in like Thailand, Bali, Australia, Canada. Like this is a medicine that, while in many countries is still completely illegal and has to operate completely underground, it exists there and there are people serving it there. Some of those people have gone through the process of going to the jungle, going to the communities, studying many years, getting the blessing from the elders, and some of those people have not gone through that process. Is something, while it still remains illegal, it's going to be very, very difficult to control and regulate who is serving and what kind of training and qualification, well, not necessarily qualifications, but yeah, what kind of training do they have to be able to do that? An analogy that I heard that I found so interesting was from this guy Carlos Tana. He's the founder of the Ayahuasca Foundation in Iquitos in Peru. He's from the US, but like 20 years ago, he had like his first ceremonies with ayahuasca, healing addiction, and then studied under indigenous maestros and with the Shipibo lineage. And he's opened a center, and now he runs these kind of like shamanic training courses for Westerners who are very interested in learning some of these like ceremonial skills. You can go there and do these training courses, and it's very much tailored to Westerners. And something that he said once is what he envisions for a medicine like ayahuasca is that it kind of becomes like yoga. Like if you think about yoga, it's a very deeply spiritual, ancient tradition, but it's become so popular now that like there are many yoga classes and yoga teachers and people doing yoga who are doing it for, weight loss, yoga to tone your abs, stuff like that, right? And it's like that's not in the original purpose and intention and like yeah the original intentions of yoga as a practice, as a deeply spiritual practice. And he sees something similar happening with ayahuasca, that this medicine is going to continue exploding, continue expanding. People are going to, the demand is only going to climb, and it's kind of inevitable that it's going to be diluted a little bit. So yeah, my opinion is, like you said, Ivaylo, like this is something that we need the traditions. Comes from a tradition, and we cannot ignore that tradition. This is a very, very specific cultural context that this medicine operates within, and it's not something that you can take outside of that cultural context and just put your own, put your own flavor on it and see how it works out. So my hope is that the facilitators that feel called, especially to serve this medicine or to work with it in a very deep way, just continue to honor those traditions, those lineages. But maybe it's going to get to the point where there are not enough healers in the jungle to receive all of the Westerners that want to learn how to serve ayahuasca. So what happens then? I guess we have to wait and see. Any other questions from anybody here? Feel free to put your hand up or drop in the chat. Hey, we have a question from Katie. What do we do to prepare the environment before a ceremony? Beautiful question. I love that. Ivaylo, would you like to take this one?
Absolutely. So I can tell you when I do ceremonies in my place in Santa Elena. So in my place I share cambo, mushrooms, and I recently started doing sweat lodge temazcal. So it's good to, well, obviously, like it's very good to have like an organized space, that there's like order and harmony in the space, like there cannot be, essentially every ceremony tries to bring order in someone's life. So you cannot have like a messy physical space and want to kind of share order with the person. So it's important to do that. Obviously, there's also, you can smudge with different, be it Palo Santo or sage or copal, or any other kind of like sacred smoke to organize the space. And when we do temazcal, well, we also, there's like a particular prayer that is said before the ceremony. But basically what you want to do is, and like, I think again, this is all my personal opinion, is that sometimes we might get a bit stuck on the form, exactly how we do things. Or like I didn't, like say gracias 7 times, I only said it 6 times, or I missed this direction, or as long as the intention is there, which is correct, which is, like I'm doing something to be clear what you're doing, to remind yourself, to ask, like spirit for guiding you, to just have the right relation with the moment, with the space, with the person, and just to, like ask for a prayer for the health of the people that are coming, and just like ask for, I also, what I do is like I ask for, whenever I share medicine, I ask that I'm protected and guided by spirits, and so whatever I do is I do for the best interest of that person that is there, giving also thanks for the opportunity to engage in the sacred ceremony, and asking for permission from all the spirits and guardians of the location. That's pretty much it. And then like what exactly you're gonna say, how exactly you're gonna say it, who exactly you're gonna pray to, is, I feel like, up to you. As long as like you're speaking from your heart, anything that you say is okay.
Thank you. I agree, Golda. Any other questions? Or just reflections, even if you just want to share something, doesn't necessarily have to be a question.
I think that like something I want to share on this on this general path with the medicines, like there are three big tests, they say. Like one of them is money, sex, and power. And how you deal with these three things, maybe not only on how you deal with these things in life, and I feel like even more so as a facilitator with medicine is really gonna determine a lot of things, you know, like the more knowledge, the more experience, the more ceremonies you go to, the more personal power you accumulate. How are you going to administer that power? What are you going to do with that power? Are you going to use it to control others and, you know, like impose your will, or kind of like twist other people's hands, arm? Or are you going to use it to protect, defend, and empower others? What kind of leader are you? Are you creating followers, or are you empowering and creating other leaders yourself? Always on this path. You know, like if you ever come across a facilitator or a medicine man who puts things in a way that where they're at is unreachable for you, this is a place to run away from. A true master, a true teacher is gonna help you remember that you are powerful beyond measure, and you can be just exactly where they're at, and they're no more special than you are, and you're no less special than anybody else. And then, you know, like with also with this path with the medicines, I think that it's important to just find a way that, of course, you know, like we spend time to, that's something that's important for me. Again, my personal opinion, that of course, like when I do the ceremonies and I do the retreats, for sure, like it's energy and my time, and I still need to pay my rent and all these things, you know, like, so we live in this material world. But don't look at this work as the work that's gonna make you rich, you know, like I want to be very rich, but I want to make a lot of money from creating different businesses that are not related to raising an altar. So that, you know, like whenever I raise the altar, I don't worry about only 5 people came, I'm not gonna be able to pay for my rent this month. This is not the right energy to be doing this with. Of course, it's good to receive money for the work that we do, because, you know, like, I mean, as much as we want to, I'm sure everyone here likes helping others, but, you know, like we cannot, if we're helping others at our own expense, we're not really helping anybody. So we want to be compensated for the time and effort that we have, but this work is not the work that's going to make us rich. This is the work financially. This is the work that's going to make us rich spiritually, emotionally, in relationships, with wisdom, with many, many other things. But don't look at this as something that's, you know, like is going to be the thing that's going to make you very, very financially rich. And then, you know, like when it comes to this, the sex part, the third test, you know, like, again, be very mindful that being in a leadership role, especially in these cases, is a very attractive energy for many people. So many people are going to look at you as this infallible, all-knowing being. Be careful not to start believing them, you know, like, and notice whenever you kind of like the temptation comes up to be like, oh, I'm this guy, or I'm this woman, you know, like who has all the answers, you know, like, but no, this is a red flag for yourself to kind of like observe yourself and kind of like, okay, like this is happening. How do I come back to earth? And in this process, it's very useful to, as Max said earlier, to have a mentor. And even if not a mentor, to have like peers, you know, like other people who are doing the same thing that you can go to and say, hey, I'm feeling like this. I just wanted to talk with someone. Also, you're gonna maybe have challenges, you know, like there might be a challenging situation or ceremony where you need support. So it's always good to have people that understand your world and you can share openly with. And also you can take off the mantle of the facilitator and kind of, you know, like have the space to be weak, and have the space to feel doubt, and have the space to feel shame and loneliness and sadness and all the human emotions, you know. So yeah, these are some things that I wanted to share.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll just close out by really encouraging you, if you feel like you have that internal calling to step into service. Yeah, it's been such a gift and a blessing for my life to be able to do this work and to walk this path. I've learned so much. Those lessons never end, but it's so worthwhile. So I would just really encourage you to follow it, always be in integrity as we've discussed, and have patience and humility, but recognize that if this is what you feel called to do, then yeah, the world needs more people to support people through these types of processes, because these medicines are expanding, and yeah, there's a big need for facilitators who are really walking in a good way. So yeah. I think with that we can close things out. Thank you everybody for staying an extra half an hour. I think in future we'll schedule it for 90 minutes. These types of conversations are very yeah, very complex, but we're so grateful for all of you coming and joining us today.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to share something very quick, something Mags and I were talking about right before we started the call. So if you feel called to get involved in some way in the things that we do, please reach out to us. We're actually needing some help. Well, myself, for example, with the monthly temazcals, like there are different things around the ceremony that you can get involved with, and also just like all the many different things that we do around medicine ceremonies, etc. Feel free to reach out to us. We have stuff to do, and we'd be very happy to get you involved. And any help is really appreciated. So if you feel like you'd like to get a little bit more involved in the things that we do, send us a message, myself or Mags, and we'd be very happy to set up a call, connect more, and figure out how this could look like, what this could look like. And on that note, thank you everybody for coming. It was such a pleasure to connect, and I want to honor this impulse in every one of you to help others, to be useful for life, for other people's process, to share back all the gifts and blessings that you have received yourself for your own journey. And wishing you all the best, lots of health, lots of joy, lots of happiness and courage in your life. And may you have lots of beauty and lots of good relationships around you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bueno, chao, chao.
Goodbye.